Hey! Today is the day that we talked about on about the, third or fourth day of school when we were doing order of operations, and we temporarily skipped exponents until today. Lucky you! Today's the day. Our goal to understand exponents. This looks a little busy and looks a tiny bit different than yours, but that's okay. A couple things to know in this picture. First of all, it says exponents are used to show repeated multiplication. Kind of like 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2. Some people say, well, why don't you just say 2 times 4? Because that's what you have. 2 times 4 is what you have. Similar, except this one is repeated multiplication. 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. Some people might say, why don't you just say 2 to the 6th? Because that's what you have. This whole thing is called a power. And if you read it out loud, you would say 2 to the 6th power. There's also some little pieces in here. Just the 2 is called the base. Just the 6 is called the exponent. Do you need to pause to write any of this down? If you add the base plus the exponent, you get the power, 2 to the 6th power. What does that mean? I'm going to ask that a lot. What does that mean? That means I have 6 twos. I have 6 twos. 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. Of course, you can always solve that to get the value also. So if I'm looking at x to the 3rd power, the blank is 3. Oh, the exponent is 3. If I'm looking at 6 to the 4th power, the blank is 6. Oh, that's the base. So they have different names. The exponent, the base, and if you put those two together, you get a power. Who needs to pause and write down? Okay, our next jobs are to either expand an exponent or put it in exponential form, it's called. So the first 3 boxes, I keep mixing up my eraser today. That is already in expanded form. We want to shrink it to exponential form. What's my base? X. How many x's were there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Be careful of this next one. What's my base? XY. It's very tempting. I counted 5 XYs. It's very tempting to just put XY to the 5th. But you know what that actually means? 1X and 5 Ys, which doesn't look the same as what we had earlier. So I actually have 2 choices. Choice 1, use parentheses around the XY and then put a 5, because that is showing you XY, 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 XY. That's the first choice. Second choice, you could do X to the 5th and Y to the 5th, because you do have X 5 times and Y 5 times. But it's in a different order, you're saying. Welcome to the commutative property of multiplication. Chapter 2 followed us to chapter 4. You can mix these up in any order you want. Go ahead and pause just briefly to try this third one. What'd you get? You know what's tempting? Do you know what a lot of people get? But do you know what that means? 1A, 1B, and 3 C's. Does that match what we had over here? Doesn't match. Again, we have 2 choices. We could put parentheses around ABC, 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 or A to the 3rd, B to the 3rd, C to the 3rd. Because you have 3 A's, 3 B's, 3 C's. So that was the top row of boxes. Why do my slides not have boxes? That's a very good question. The next 3 examples want us to expand it out. This is the exponential form, it's called. We want to expand it out. Well, what does D to the 3rd mean? D times D times D. 3 D's. Seven to the 4th. What does that mean? 7 times 7 times 7 times 7. Now I want you to go back here and realize, oh, we expanded out 2 to the 6th. We expanded it out. This is an expanded form. But then we also found the value. So here's my exponential form. I expanded it out, but now I also want to find the value. Pause and solve. If you did not use this strategy, I highly encourage you to use that strategy. It will make the next 2 days easier. 2 days, you say? Yes, More exponents coming up in the next lesson. You can't get rid of them now. How's my math? Did you get 2,401? So, two things just happened on these number ones. Two things just happened. Took my exponential form, expanded it out, and then I found the actual value also. Wait, why didn't we do that for d times d times d? Oh, we can't actually solve d times d times d, that's why. Go ahead and pause and try this last one. Two things happen. Expand it out, and then find the value. This one is a little bit easier. You don't need a side problem. Okay, this one says, again, the other way. Write using exponents. Write using exponents. It already is expanded out. We want to shrink it back, kind of like we did up here. Shrink it back to an exponent. Pause and go. Okay, 6 times 6 times 6. What's the base? 6. How many are there? 3 of them. I'm going to skip this middle one for a second. Negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3. Keep the parentheses. Keep the parentheses. Keep the parentheses. We don't have enough math power to ditch the parentheses just because we feel like it. Keep the parentheses. How many negative 3's are there? 4. Back to the middle one. Here's something I didn't tell you yet. Good news, you're watching, you're learning something. In these types of problems, when there's a number and several variables, you put the number first and then the variables in alphabetical order. You put the numbers first and then the variables in alphabetical order. But wait, y times y, I should really write that with an exponent. Where'd the multiplication dots go? Oh, they're in there. You can write them, but you don't have to. If you know someone, my aunt does this. She draws blood and then they bring it to the lab and they look at it under a microscope. Turns out this microscope, 10 to the third. How many times is that? 3 tens. But don't stop there. Two things happened. We expanded it out, and now we want to find the value. Shortcuts for tens, people. Shortcut for tens. Are you listening? Count the zeros. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3 zeros. Shortcuts for tens only. Tens only, tens only. Say it with me, tens only. 10 times 10 times 10, there's 3 zeros, so I put 3 zeros on my answer. So that means that our blood cells, this is kind of a cool picture actually, are magnified 1,000 times under this microscope. What would it be if it was 10 to the 4th times? It says it really small right here. Expand it out. Find the value. Shortcut for tens only. 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros. Shortcut for tens only. One other really important thing I have to tell you. Remember back here where I said we weren't powerful enough to ditch the parentheses? True. We need to know the difference of when that has parentheses and when it doesn't. So first step, expand it out. Pause and expand it out. Okay, the first one, or the left one, I expanded out with parentheses. The right one, very tricky. Only the 3 gets repeated 4 times. Only the 3 gets repeated 4 times because 4 is attached to the 3, not the negative. Here, 4 is attached to the 3 and the negative with the parentheses. This one, 4 is just attached to the 3 and there's a negative in front. So 2 things, expand it out, and now you should be finding the value. Pause and go. If you didn't make groups, I highly recommend it. Negative times a negative, positive. Negative times a negative, positive. Positive times a positive, positive. On the second one, negative times a positive, negative. Negative times a positive, negative. What's the difference? A lot. Think of a number line. Think about how far these two are apart on a number line. They're 162 numbers apart. What's the difference? A lot. Whether you have parentheses or not is going to determine if your answer is positive or negative. Some people noticed on the left, since there was an even amount of negatives, when they made a pair, it became positive. Well, what would happen if you added another negative? It would flip it back to negative. So it really depends on, with parentheses, if you have an even amount or an odd amount. Without parentheses, it's just always negative because this negative is hanging out in the front and this negative just keeps following down to the answer. So, last one, use this information to find the difference when A is 2. Ready, go. Pause. Okay, I'm going to substitute A for 2. There's one option. There's the other option. On the left, on the left, 4 is attached to the 2. Not the negative. On the right, 4 is attached to negative 2. We can't just get rid of the parentheses because we're feeling like it. Now what happens? Okay, that was expanding it out. Now what's the value? Some people are catching on. This negative in the front carries all the way down to the answer. Over here, an even amount of negatives. No negatives left. This is going to be a huge, huge, huge thing today and tomorrow when we're practicing. Because some people are going to have completely opposite, and by opposite I mean the definition of opposite sides of 0, than another person. Because you have to, should I say it again? Have to pay attention to the negatives. Turns out the ones with all positives are looking like the easy ones. Turns out the ones with positives are looking like the easy ones. Also, don't forget this. Numbers first and variables in alphabetical order. Goal of the day, to understand exponents. Got it. Page 180, part 2.